Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my comments will be directed to Mr. Abate. Am I saying that right?
Yes, Senator.
And Mr. Olson, perhaps to all of you. No fair-minded person can doubt the efficacy of Section 702. But here's the problem you've got. Just when the FBI, which I think is the most effective law enforcement agency in all of human history. Just when but people are people, and just when the FBI has rebuilt itself after former Director Hoover, along comes Mr. Wray's predecessor, who clearly did not understand how to exercise power either intelligently or maturely. He decides to investigate in a public way not only one, but both candidates for President of the United States, and to do it publicly, and to leak like the Titanic. He investigates the Republican nominee with the flimsiest of evidence that has been manufactured that he, the FBI director at that time, didn't even bother to examine. And then he turns to the Democratic nominee with respect to her email servers, investigates her, calls a press conference, says, well, I am not going to prosecute her, but she needs to clean up her act. She's been negligent. And then a little time goes by, and he opens up the investigation again in a public way on the Democratic nominee and says, I'm opening this up. And a few days later, he closes it down. Might have cost her to the election. And then we start having reports, predictably, come out after that, the Durham report, the Mueller report, the Horowitz report. And it did extraordinary damage to the FBI and, frankly, to the Department of Justice. Now, Mr. Wray, who I supported to replace Mr. Comey, has said he has reformed the FBI. We just don't know how. We have no idea. I don't have any idea. I do know stuff keeps happening. I mean, one of your agents that was involved in the Mr. Hunter Biden's investigation goes on social media, apparently for a long period of time, and trashes all Republicans. He got fired only because Senator Grassley caught him. And all this hurts you. And it makes a fair-minded American look at this and go, whoa, you know, this is enormous power you have, and it can be used for the greater good, but it also can hurt people. And we've got to come up with a way to make sure that the right people are using this law enforcement tool. And that's the problem you got, gentlemen. If I were you, I'm not. I don't have your expertise, and I thank you all for your service. But if I were you, I'd try to be coming up with a way to suggest to Congress how you can check this power that you have, so that the FBI and the Department of Justice and the other agencies can regain their reputation. And tell us what you think. That doesn't mean we won't come with our own ideas. You know, senators don't take orders. Most of them barely take suggestions. But it would be helpful to me if you would come up with your own ideas to address these concerns, not just our concerns, but the concerns of the American people. I don't want to live in a country where if the FBI knocks on your door, the first thing you have to do is wonder whether the agent is a Republican or a Democrat. And thanks to Mr. Wray's predecessor, that's where we are, folks. I know that's a cold dish of truth, but I think that's the truth. So I'm gonna read your testimony. I need to learn more about this, but help us figure out this problem. Thank you, gentlemen.
Chair Durbin has stepped out and left me to chair in his stead, and I'm also
I
next
like you
in
better.
line.
You're doing a hell of a job.
Not in public, Senator Kennedy, please.
You're doing a hell of a job.
Okay, so I have the privilege of sitting on both the Judiciary and Intelligence Committees. And let me just start by saying, I think there's no serious doubt about the collection value of this overarching authority. And the most important question that we need to be focused on at this hearing is U.S. person queries. That is the principal source of concern for me, and I think for many of my colleagues. And Mr. Olson, it's the case, is it not, that the FBI can query this database for U.S. person communications simply seeking evidence of a crime. It does not have to be a national security investigation, correct?
It is correct, Senator. Thank you for the question, that the FBI can search using a U.S. person identifier for either foreign intelligence or evidence of a crime, but there must be a reasonable basis to believe that there is information in the Section 702 data that would be responsive to such a query.
Yeah, why should there not be a warrant requirement for these searches, which are known as crime-only searches, whereby FBI agents are seeking the communications of Americans, either considering opening a criminal investigation or in the midst of a predicated criminal investigation? So why should there not be a warrant requirement for such a U.S. person query?
So stepping back for a moment, if I may, just to provide
Just for a moment.
Very quickly, Section 702 is a foreign intelligence tool. It's
Yes.
not a law enforcement tool.
Right. So why is it used for domestic law enforcement purposes?
It has been used exceedingly rarely where a query using a U.S. person identifier would have identified information that did not have a foreign intelligence purpose. So outside of the national security realm, not involving a terrorism or espionage or cyber charge or investigation.
Yeah, so it can be used for this purpose, and it has been used for this purpose.
2022, it was 16 different times. 14 of those times where it was used for evidence of a crime only were where the U.S. government had an affirmative discovery obligation to search.
Well, we'll get into those numbers in a second, but it begs the question, if it's so rare as you state, why not go get a warrant?
I think the initial idea was that there would be occasions, perhaps, where an agent or an analyst would find evidence of a crime only, not national security information, in the 702 data and would want to be able to use that. And it has happened that an agent found evidence of child abuse while looking at Section 702 data. So pure evidence of a crime that they were
Different
then
case.
able
We're
to
talking
follow.
about seeking evidence of a crime only. We're not talking about encountering evidence of other crimes in the course of querying foreign intelligence information. We're talking about U.S. person queries whose sole purpose is investigating domestic crime. Why should that not require a warrant?
The reason for not requiring a warrant is that this is lawfully collected information that is in the FBI holdings, and to simply wall off the FBI, for example, in the child abuse context, from seeing that information and using it would prevent them from being able to follow
That's
up
a
on
different fact pattern. That's encountering evidence of a crime in the course of conducting foreign intelligence investigations. This is a question I think that the committee needs to look into. I want to talk about this question of justification. We got a document last night, about 12 hours before this hearing, announcing some new reforms. I want to read back something that you said to Chair Durbin in this hearing. You said, starting in 2021, the FBI agent or analyst had to actually affirmatively take the step that I'm going to conduct a search using a U.S. person identifier and then say why that was reasonably likely to return foreign intelligence information. This is the justification for the query that has to be entered into the system. But it's the case, isn't it, that until 12 hours ago, when we received this, they only had to enter that justification if they actually looked at the results. They did not have to enter that justification to enter the query, correct?
That's correct. It was only if there was responsive information from the query. At that point, there would be the obligation to
Right, so they
justify.
can enter the query, and they're going to see substantive information before they view the full results, aren't they? Going to see a number of results. They may see some metadata. They may even see some preview content, correct?
I don't believe that there would be any opportunity to review any content of what was produced in response to the query before entering the justification.
No metadata.
I'm not sure about that.
Well, it's metadata either way, isn't it? Because it reveals whether or not the U.S. person being investigated has had contact with anyone in the FBI's portion of the underlying 702 database, correct?
It may simply be sent. I don't know the exact answer.
I'm out of time, but
it may simply be a response that there is responsive information in the data, but nothing further.
I'm out of time, but let me just say, so as I said at the beginning, I don't have any doubt about the foreign intelligence value of this. But the U.S. person query aspect of this is really concerning to the Congress. I don't think you've effectively made the case that there shouldn't be a warrant requirement, whether or not it is constitutionally required for a U.S. person search that is crime only. And it just, it undermines the feeling about transparency. When you and your colleagues making the rounds for the last few months about touting the reforms you've implemented have been explaining to us that, well, ever since the reforms were made, we have to state a justification for the query. When it turns out that you only had to state the justification for the query if you actually decided to look at what the search revealed. So U.S. person queries is an area ripe for statutory changes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.